The Colosseum Colosseum, Italian, Colosso, is an oval amphitheater in the center of the city of Rome, Italy, just east of the Roman Forum. It is the largest ancient amphitheater ever built, and is still the largest standing amphitheater in the world today, despite its age. Construction began under the Emperor Vespasian r. 69 to 79 AD, in 72 and was completed in 80 AD under his successor and heir, Titus r. 79 to 81. Further modifications were made during the reign of Domitian r. 81 to 96. The three emperors that were patrons of the work are known as the Flavian Dynasty, and the amphitheater was named the Flavian Amphitheater, Latin. Amphitheatrum Flavium. Italian. Anfiteatro Flavio, by later classicists and archaeologists for its association with their family name Flavius. The Colosseum is built of travertine limestone, tough volcanic rock, and brick-faced concrete. It could hold an estimated 50,000 to 80,000 spectators at various points in its history, having an average audience of some 65,000. It was used for gladiatorial contests and public spectacles including animal hunts, executions, reenactments of famous battles, and dramas based on Roman mythology, and briefly mock sea battles. The building ceased to be used for entertainment in the early medieval era. It was later reused for such purposes as housing, workshops, quarters for a religious order, a fortress, a quarry, and a Christian shrine. Although substantially ruined because of earthquakes and stone robbers, for spolia, the Colosseum is still an iconic symbol of imperial Rome and was listed as one of the new seven wonders of the world. It is one of Rome's most popular tourist attractions and also has links to the Roman Catholic Church, as each Good Friday the Pope leads a torqulet, Way of the Cross, procession that starts in the area around the Colosseum. The Colosseum is depicted on the Italian version of the 5-cent euro coin. Originally, the building's Latin name was simply the Latin Amphitheatrum, lit. Amphitheater. Though the modern name Flavian Amphitheater, Latin Amphitheatrum Flavium, is often used, there is no evidence it was used in classical antiquity. This name refers to the patronage of the Flavian Dynasty, during whose reigns the building was constructed, but the structure is better known as the Colosseum. In antiquity, Romans may have referred to the Colosseum by the unofficial name Amphitheatrum Caesarium, with Caesarium an adjective pertaining to the title Caesar, but this name may have been strictly poetic as it was not exclusive to the Colosseum. Vespasian and Titus, builders of the Colosseum, also constructed a Flavian amphitheater in Puteoli, modern Pozzuoli. The name Colosseum is believed to be derived from a colossal statue of Nero on the model of the Colossus of Rhodes. The giant bronze sculpture of Nero as a solar deity was moved to its position beside the amphitheater by the Emperor Hadrian r. 117 to 138. The word Colosseum is a neuter Latin noun formed from the adjective colossius, meaning gigantic, or Colossine. By the year 1000 the Latin name, Colosseum, had been coined to refer to the amphitheater from the nearby, Colossus Solis. The spelling was sometimes altered in medieval Latin. Colosseum and Colosseum are attested from the 12th and 14th centuries respectively. In the 12th century, the structure was recorded as the Amphitheatrum Colossae, Amphitheater of the Colossus. In the High Middle Ages, the Flavian Amphitheater is attested as the late 13th century Old French, Colossae, and in Middle French as Colisée by the early 16th century, by which time the word could be applied to any amphitheater. From Middle French, Colisée derived the Middle English, Colise, in use by the middle of the 15th century and employed by John Capgrave in his Solace of Pilgrims, in which he remarked, Middle English, Colise is a meruelous place, e most part of it stant at I stay. An English translation by John Bourchier, 2nd Baron Berners, of Antonio de Guevara's biography of Marcus Aurelius r. 161 to 180, in about 1533 referred to Middle English, this emperor, banged with the Senate at Colisi. Similarly, the Italian Colosseo, or Coliseo, are attested as referring first to the amphitheater in Rome, and then to any amphitheater, as Italian Coliseo in 1367. By 1460, an equivalent existed in Catalan. Coloseu. By 1495 had appeared the Spanish Coliseo, and by 1548 the Portuguese Coloseu. The earliest citation for the name Colosseum in early modern English is the 1600 translation, by Philemon Holland, of the Urbis Romae Topographia of Bartolomeo Marliani, which he used in the preparation of his translation of Livy's Augustan era A flat urba condita libri. The text states, "This amphitheater was commonly called Colosseum, of Nero's Colossus, which was set up in the porch of Nero's house." Similarly, John Evelyn, translating the Middle French name, Le Colisée used by the architectural theorist Roland Friart de Chambray, wrote, "And 'tis indeed a kind of miracle to see that the Colosseum, and innumerable other structures which seem to have been built for eternity, should be at present so ruinous and dilapidated." After Nero's suicide and the civil wars of the Year of the Four Emperors, the Colossus of Nero was remodeled by the condemned emperor's successors into the likeness of Helios, Sol, or Apollo, the sun god, by adding the appropriate solar crown. It was then commonly referred to as the Colossus Solis. Nero's head was also replaced several times with the heads of succeeding emperors. Despite its pagan links, the statue remained standing well into the medieval era and was credited with magical powers. The Emperor Constantine the Great remodeled the statue's face as his own. In the 8th century, an epigram attributed to the venerable Bede celebrated the symbolic significance of the statue in a prophecy that is variously quoted. Quamdiu stat Colosseus, stat et Roma, quando cadet Colosseus, cadet et Roma, quando cadet Roma, cadet et mundus, as long as the Colossus stands, so shall Rome, when the Colossus falls, Rome shall fall, when Rome falls, so falls the world. This is often mistranslated to refer to the Colosseum rather than the Colossus, as in, for instance, Byron's poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. However, at the time that the pseudo-Bede wrote, the masculine noun Colosseus was applied to the statue rather than to the amphitheater. The Colossus did eventually fall, possibly being pulled down to reuse its bronze. The statue itself was largely forgotten and only its base survives, between the Colosseum and the nearby Temple of Venus in Roma. The site chosen was a flat area on the floor of a low valley between the Caelian, Esquiline and Palatine hills, through which a canalized stream ran as well as an artificial lake marsh. By the 2nd century BC the area was densely inhabited. It was devastated by the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD, following which Nero seized much of the area to add to his personal domain. He built the grandiose Domus Aurea on the site, in front of which he created an artificial lake surrounded by pavilions, gardens and porticos. The existing Aqua Claudia aqueduct was extended to supply water to the area and the gigantic bronze Colossus of Nero was set up nearby at the entrance to the Domus Aurea. Although the Colossus was preserved, much of the Domus Aurea was torn down. The lake was filled in and the land reused as the location for the new Flavian amphitheater. Gladiatorial schools and other support buildings were constructed nearby within the former grounds of the Domus Aurea. Vespasian's decision to build the Colosseum on the site of Nero's lake can be seen as a populist gesture of returning to the people an area of the city which Nero had appropriated for his own use. In contrast to many other amphitheaters, which were on the outskirts of a city, the Colosseum was constructed in the city center, in effect, placing it both symbolically and precisely at the heart of Rome. Construction was funded by the opulent spoils taken from the Jewish temple after the First Jewish-Roman War in 70 AD led to the siege of Jerusalem. According to a reconstructed inscription found on the site, the Emperor Vespasian ordered this new amphitheater to be erected from his general's share of the booty. It is often assumed that Jewish prisoners of war were brought back to Rome and contributed to the massive workforce needed for the construction of the amphitheater, but there is no ancient evidence for that. It would, nonetheless, be commensurate with Roman practice to add humiliation to the defeated population. Along with this free source of unskilled labor, teams of professional Roman builders, engineers, artists, painters and decorators undertook the more specialized tasks necessary for building the Colosseum. The Colosseum was constructed with several different materials: wood, limestone, tuff, tiles, cement, and mortar. Construction of the Colosseum began under the rule of Vespasian in around 70 to 72 AD, 73 to 75 AD according to some sources. The Colosseum had been completed up to the third story by the time of Vespasian's death in 79. The top level was finished by his son, Titus, in 80, and the inaugural games were held in 80 or 81 AD. Dio Cassius recounts that over 9,000 wild animals were killed during the inaugural games of the amphitheater. Commemorative coinage was issued celebrating the inauguration. The building was remodeled further under Vespasian's younger son, the newly designated Emperor Domitian, who constructed the Hypogeum, a series of tunnels used to house animals and slaves. He also added a gallery to the top of the Colosseum to increase its seating capacity. In 217, the Colosseum was badly damaged by a major fire, caused by lightning, according to Dio Cassius, which destroyed the wooden upper levels of the amphitheater's interior. It was not fully repaired until about 240 and underwent further repairs in 250 or 252 and again in 320. Honorius banned the practice of gladiator fights in 399 and again in 404. Gladiatorial fights are last mentioned around 435. An inscription records the restoration of various parts of the Colosseum under Theodosius II and Valentinian III, reigned 425 to 455, possibly to repair damage caused by a major earthquake in 443. More work followed in 484 and 508. The arena continued to be used for contests well into the 6th century. Animal hunts continued until at least 523. When Anicius Maximus celebrated his consulship with some Venetians, criticized by King Theodoric the Great for their high cost. The Colosseum has a wide and well-documented history of flora ever since Domenico Panaroli made the first catalogue of its plants in 1643. Since then, 684 species have been identified there. The peak was in 1855, 420 species. Attempts were made in 1871 to eradicate the vegetation, because of concerns over the damage that was being caused to the masonry, but much of it has returned. 242 species have been counted today, and of the species first identified by Panaroli, 200 remain. The variation of plants can be explained by the change of climate in Rome through the centuries. Additionally, bird migration, flower blooming, and the growth of Rome that caused the Colosseum to become embedded within the modern city center rather than on the outskirts of the ancient city, as well as deliberate transport of species, are also contributing causes. Another reason often given is their seeds being unwittingly transported either on the fur or in the feces of animals brought there from all corners of the empire. The Colosseum was used to host gladiatorial shows as well as a variety of other events. The shows, called munera, were always given by private individuals rather than the state. They had a strong religious element but were also demonstrations of power and family prestige, and were immensely popular with the population. Another popular type of show was the animal hunt, or venatio. This utilized a great variety of wild beasts, mainly imported from Africa and the Middle East, and included creatures such as rhinoceros, hippopotamuses, elephants, giraffes, aurochs, wisents, Barbary lions, panthers, leopards, bears, Caspian tigers, crocodiles and ostriches. Battles and hunts were often staged amid elaborate sets with movable trees and buildings. Such events were occasionally on a huge scale. Trajan is said to have celebrated his victories in Dacia in 107 with contests involving 11,000 animals and 10,000 gladiators over the course of 123 days. During lunch intervals, executions ad bestias would be staged. Those condemned to death would be sent into the arena, naked and unarmed, to face the beasts of death which would literally tear them to pieces. Other performances would also take place by acrobats and magicians, typically during the intervals. During the early days of the Colosseum, ancient writers recorded that the building was used for naumachii, more properly known as navalia prolia, or simulated sea battles. Accounts of the inaugural games held by Titus in AD 80 describe it being filled with water for a display of specially trained swimming horses and bulls. There is also an account of a reenactment of a famous sea battle between the Corcyraean Corfiot Greeks and the Corinthians. This has been the subject of some debate among historians. Although providing the water would not have been a problem, it is unclear how the arena could have been waterproofed, nor would there have been enough space in the arena for the warships to move around. It has been suggested that the reports either have the location wrong, or that the Colosseum originally featured a wide flutable channel down its central axis, which would later have been replaced by the hypogeum. Sylvae or recreations of natural scenes were also held in the arena. Painters, technicians and architects would construct a simulation of a forest with real trees and bushes planted in the arena's floor, and animals would then be introduced. Such scenes might be used simply to display a natural environment for the urban population, or could otherwise be used as the backdrop for hunts or dramas depicting episodes from mythology. They were also occasionally used for executions in which the hero of the story, played by a condemned person, was killed in one of various gruesome but mythologically authentic ways, such as being mauled by beasts or burned to death. The Colosseum today is a major tourist attraction in Rome with thousands of tourists each year entering to view the interior arena. There is now a museum dedicated to Eros in the upper floor of the outer wall of the building. Part of the arena floor has been refloored. Beneath the Colosseum, a network of subterranean passageways once used to transport wild animals and gladiators to the arena opened to the public in summer 2010. The Colosseum is also the site of Roman Catholic ceremonies in the 20th and 21st centuries. For instance, Pope Benedict XVI led the Stations of the Cross, called the Scriptural Way of the Cross, which calls for more meditation, at the Colosseum on Good Fridays. In 2011, Diego Della Valle, head of the shoe firm Tod's, entered into an agreement with local officials to sponsor a €25 million restoration of the Colosseum. Work was planned to begin at the end of 2011, taking up to 2.5 years. Due to the controversial nature of using a public-private partnership to fund the restoration, work was delayed and began in 2013. The restoration is the first full cleaning and repair in the Colosseum's history. The first stage is to clean and restore the Colosseum's arcaded facade and replace the metal enclosures that block the ground-level arches. After 3 years, the work was completed on 1 July 2016, when the Italian Minister of Culture, Dario Franceschini, also announced that the funds have been committed to replace the floors by the end of 2018. These will provide a stage that Franceschini says will be used for cultural events of the highest level. The project also includes creating a services center and restoring the galleries and underground spaces inside the Colosseum. Since 1 November 2017, the top 2 levels have been open for guided visits. The 4th level held the marketplace, and the top 5th tier is where the poorest citizens, the plebeians, gathered and watched the show, bringing picnics for the day-long event. The arena itself was 83 meters by 48 meters, 272 feet by 157 feet, 280 by 163 Roman feet. It comprised a wooden floor covered by sand. The Latin word for sand is harena or arena, covering an elaborate underground structure called the hypogeum, literally meaning underground. The hypogeum was not part of the original construction but was ordered to be built by Emperor Domitian. Little now remains of the original arena floor, but the hypogeum is still clearly visible. It consisted of a 2-level subterranean network of tunnels and cages beneath the arena where gladiators and animals were held before contests began. 80 vertical shafts provided instant access to the arena for caged animals and scenery pieces concealed underneath. Larger hinged platforms, called hegmata, provided access for elephants and the like. It was restructured on numerous occasions. At least 12 different phases of construction can be seen. The hypogeum was connected by tunnels to a number of points outside the Colosseum. Animals and performers were brought through the tunnel from nearby stables, with the gladiators' barracks at the Ludus Magnus to the east also being connected by tunnels. Separate tunnels were provided for the emperor and the Vestal Virgins to permit them to enter and exit the Colosseum without needing to pass through the crowds. Substantial quantities of machinery also existed in the hypogeum. Elevators and pulleys raised and lowered scenery and props, as well as lifting caged animals to the surface for release. There is evidence for the existence of major hydraulic mechanisms, and according to ancient accounts, it was possible to flood the arena rapidly, presumably via a connection to a nearby aqueduct. However, the construction of the hypogeum at Domitian's behest put an end to the practice of flooding, and thus also to naval battles, early in the Colosseum's existence.